Hi beautiful, welcome to my channel. Today's video is kind of the most exciting video of the year for me because we are going to rank every single palette I tried in 2021. I have now counted them and they are 59 palettes total. I cannot wait to tell you exactly how I feel about each and every one of these. I did leave out palettes that were like face and eye palettes. Like if part of the value I see in the palette is the blush or highlighter or bronzer, that palette is not included in this ranking because I thought it was going to be a little bit unfair. I did leave the Primrose palette from Anastasia because I do not use either one of those blush shades as blushes. I see them as eyeshadow, so I left it in here. Besides that, I wanted to say I rank these palettes kind of based on level of excitement. Maybe I put into account how much I'm reaching for the palette or how easy it is to come up with looks with, whether or not I have to reach into another palette to create a look. I take all of those things into account lightly, but it mainly is just kind of like how much the palette excites me type of thing. So, well, I'm going to tell you pros and cons about the palettes I'll be mentioning to you. It doesn't mean that my decisions have to be like 100% logic because we are talking about so many different brands, so many different formulations, so many different palette formats. There's palettes that have a ton of shades and palettes that only have 4 shades. There's all different kinds of prices, etc. Just take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. This is just my rankings of my palettes in the way that I see my collection and I use them, if that makes sense. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started because we do have a lot to go over. There are 4 palettes I tried this year that I do not have in my collection anymore. I'll explain why as I go. Palette number 59 is the Mary Jane palette from Melt Cosmetics, and that one is my least favorite palette of this year because it was the one palette that I just could not make work for myself. Every single other palette, whether it's mediocre or the color story is not the best or whatever, I can make them work, I can put them on, and I can come up with looks that I'm comfortable with. The Mary Jane palette from Melt Cosmetics just did not work for me. Every time I tried to use it, it was a patchy mess. The shimmers weren't impressive. It had a ton of fallout and I just didn't like it, and the reason I don't have it is because I took it back to Sephora to return it. Palette number 58 I do have with me, and it is this one right here. This is the Fenty Beauty palette that came out this year. I literally kept this one and didn't take it back just because I was thinking of videos like this one where I could show it to you guys. But this palette was just meh. Like literally just not much excites me about this palette. The color story is quite boring and I think the eyeshadow formula is mediocre for what the palette is worth. I reviewed it and I still do not recommend it, so that is the reason why this one is number 58. The next 2 palettes are from Juvia's Place, and the reason I don't have them anymore is because I decluttered them and I gave them away to a friend. So palette number 57 is the Juvia's Place Grays palette. I remember getting like one cute look with that one, but it wasn't anything that I was overly excited about. And I remember that for a palette that only had 4 shades, 2 of them looked exactly the same on my eyelids, and so for that reason that one is my number 57. And at 56 I have another one from Juvia's Place, and it was the Honey palette. Similar reasoning, the 2 mattes in the palette looked exactly the same on my eyelids. You can go back to the review and check it out. And then the Honey Gold color story was pretty, but just nothing that I was overly excited about, so that is the reason. At number 54 from the same collection, I have this one right here. This is the Juvia's Place Army palette. I really did like these greens a lot more. I think the reason this one ranks still lower is because I feel like it's great for like darker complexions, but for me I definitely have to reach for another palette in order to complete looks with this one because it takes a while to blend out the greens to look transition-y or blended on my crease because it is a very intense green palette. Plus I feel like, I don't know, if there were like different shades of green in it I would like it better, but they all feel like the same exact tone. Maybe that was the intention behind it. It's a cute palette, I don't regret it, but I don't really reach for it much. I just have others that excite me a little better. At number 53, I have this one here. This is the Coral Me Maybe from Essence. For how cheap this palette is, it is amazing, okay? I have no complaints. I actually really did like it. I think this is like $4 or $6. It's like a very, very affordable little palette, and I do recommend it. It's just not as exciting to me because I have other palettes with similar shades in different formulas, cuter packaging. Maybe the shadows are a little bit shinier, but honestly, for the price, I think this is absolutely beautiful. At number 53, I have this one here from Huda. This is the Huda Caramel Brown palette. I remember the formula in this one not being my favorite. Couldn't get this shade to like half much pigment at all. I dug a hole in it. Huda has not mastered the cream eyeshadows yet, in my opinion. Also, nothing too terrible about this one. I did like it just okay. It's just not a favorite of mine. This browns collection from Huda wasn't the most exciting to me, to the point where usually when Huda releases Obsessions palettes, I usually do like multiple looks with them. And when I reviewed this collection, I did the review, I tried each palette, and I didn't do any more looks with it or anything because it was just okay. It wasn't overly impressive. It wasn't the best Huda formula. I like the color story, is nice and useful, but just not my favorite. At number 52, I have this palette right here. This is the Berlin 89 palette from Lethal Cosmetics. I absolutely love the message behind this palette, and it has a triochrome in it. As far as the color story is concerned though, I feel like even though I can create looks with it that I like and I feel comfortable with, it doesn't overly excite me. And I know that they were going for beautiful and ugly shades, quote unquote, that were reminiscent of that time in Berlin. But as far as like eyeshadow goes, it's just not the most inspiring palette to me. The formulas are really good though. So Berlin 89 is my palette in the 52nd spot. In number 51, I have this palette right here from MAC, and it's a pretty palette. The eyeshadows performed beautifully when I tried it. I did create a look with this one that I like. I think it's a really good palette for everyday, work appropriate, but as far as it ranking in my collection, I feel like the rest of them I have in front of this one are more exciting to me. This one's kind of like boring. It's like good basic, but it is basic. And the packaging, I don't know, I feel like they could have done better with the palette packaging for this one. Okay, next we have another palette from that brown collection from Huda. This is the Chocolate Brown palette. A little bit on the basic side. I do like that it has some like brown burgundy type of shades. Like I said before with the previous one, the formulation in these just wasn't the best. I feel like Huda's shimmers are usually so much better, so much more vibrant and pigmented and like shimmery and glittery. This one was kind of like more toned down. The mattes didn't blend as easily. Like I said, an okay collection. The rest of the palettes in front excite me just a tad bit more. Okay, nobody get upset about this one. I know this is one of my favorite eyeshadow brands, but not everything that they do overly excites me, and this one just kind of fell short for me. Nobody get mad, okay? At number 49, I have a Pat McGrath palette. Shocking, I know. This one right here, this is the Deep Space Divinity, part of their holiday collection. Just not my favorite palette. I found the gold bronzy shades in this one to be pretty repetitive. They look pretty much the same. I do like the blue duochrome shade, but then the burgundy matte right there at the end made me look like I got punched in the eye. Just that specific shade is just not flattering on my complexion, at least not without a transition color. And therefore, it is my 49th palette in my collection this year. I absolutely love Pat McGrath formulas. This color story just didn't work the best for me, and so because of that, it's not a palette that excites me as much as the rest of them that I'm going to talk about. The only exciting color I found in this one is the duochrome blue, but the other three colors were meh, just okay. And then at number 48, I do have another Pat McGrath palette. This one came out during the February this year, and it's just overly pink in my opinion. I like pinky toned palettes. I do, I really do. They are some of my favorite, but I have to have pink tones that combine with like purple or like mauve shades, etc. I don't like the fuchsia brighter types of pinks, and that is kind of the look that you can get with this palette. Therefore, it's not my favorite. Number 47 is the last palette that I do not have in front of me. I forgot that I was doing this video and I gave it away already. It is from Odin's Eye. It was a double palette that came out during the Saga of Freya collection. I'll put the picture on the screen right here. It had nice shades that combined beautifully, but for some reason I just wasn't overly excited about that one. However, I could totally come up with looks that I liked, and the formulas were really nice. I do love Odin's Eye's formulas, but just that color story, I found some of the colors to be a little bit random, and so for that reason, that is palette number 47. At number 46, I have this one right here. This is the last of the Huda Brown collection palettes. This is the Toffee palette right here. This was the most exciting in that collection. I felt like the gold shimmer shades were a little bit more vibrant in this one. Plus, it was a different palette for Huda with the warm mustardy shades, something she hadn't done before, therefore it excites me just a little bit more than the rest of them. It is a nice 9-pan palette, really good transition shade, good shades to deepen up the crease with. I love the mustardy shades, like I said, and the shimmers in this one, even though they do look very similar to one another, were a little bit more glitzy, so I did like this one the best in that collection, and it is palette number 46. On the 45th spot this year, I have a palette that I truly thought when I bought it was probably going to be one of my favorite palettes of the year, and it is nowhere near the top, and that is unfortunate, first of all, in my opinion, but it is the Michaela and Glamlight palette right here. I'm looking at it and I'm maybe regretting my decision to put it so far back, because it is such a beautiful palette to look at. And the shimmer shades are absolutely stunning. However, I could not make these mattes work for me. It was a huge struggle to make the mattes in this palette work. I felt like when it came to doing the 5 looks 1 palette video with this one, for some reason I felt stuck and uninspired, and I think for those reasons I have never reached to this palette again. I'm looking at it right now and it looks absolutely gorgeous on the screen. Definitely the reason I bought it. Plus I really liked that it was super colorful, but it also had really nice natural shades on top. I don't regret getting it. Plus it allowed me to try the Glamlight formula for the first time. I do think it's a good palette, but I just for some reason struggled with it, which is what made me less excited about it. I'm looking at it on the screen and it's just so beautiful, but I'm sticking to my thoughts about it. This is on the 45th spot, which again, just unfortunate. But I just couldn't make the mattes work for me. Things looked patchy. The formula, in my opinion, for the mattes was hard to work with. It didn't blend the best. So while it has some really beautiful metallic shades, it's just not my favorite. So this palette here is number 45. 44 is from Odin's Eye. This is the Saga of Freya. This one is called Cat with Golden Carriage, and I absolutely love this color story. I love the teals, and I love combining the teals with the orangey shades. For some reason I like that. Plus this palette also has some really stunning shimmer shades. I'm sorry that I'm not swatching anything, it's just we have a lot to cover, so if you want to see swatches of anything that I'm showing, definitely check out the review videos that I did for all of these palettes. I've swatched every single one of these on my channel. Anyways, I love the shimmer shades that come in this palette. The reason it ranked a little bit further back than I would have initially expected, I guess, it's because this dark matte teal shade is kind of a lot. I don't know, whenever I put it on, it just goes a little bit further away from my eyeball than I want to, and so it becomes overpowering. But other than that, I really love this palette, and I'm obsessed with the beautiful, like, vintagey type of packaging. At number 43, I have an Urban Decay palette, the only Urban Decay palette I tried this year. I'm pretty sure that is true. And that is the Urban Decay Naked Wild West palette. I absolutely die for the packaging. I feel like that is kind of what made me buy this palette in the first place. And this is what it looks like on the inside here. You know, nothing terrible about this one. I do like that they gave us some nice natural shades to go with the like 2 pops of color that came in this one. I think that's one of the things that disappointed me about it, is I just expected it to be a little bit more different than it is. They did give us a couple of pops of colors. The formula of this palette is good. Everything blended nicely. The shimmers are nice. Just, I like the rest of the palettes I'm about to mention a little better. At number 42, I have a drugstore palette, and this was actually the first palette I reviewed in 2021, and it is the Milani Gilded Terra palette. This palette has an absolutely stunning color story. The color story I am a huge fan of. The metallic shades work great. The mattes, I can make them work without a problem. I can blend them into one another. It might take me just a little bit longer with this one than with some of my other favorite formulas. Therefore, it ranks a little lower because like the quality of the formula is not like as great as some of the other formulas that are, you know, about to come. However, color story wise, I absolutely love this, and like I said, I can totally make it work. So yes, not mad at this one. I liked it. I love the color story. The formula could be a little better, but for drugstore and the $20 price tag, not bad at all. I was going to say that's the drugstore palette that made it furthest along, but it's not. I have one more that I have to show you. It's the second most favorite drugstore type of palette. At number 41, I have this one here. This is from Dior, part of the Birds of a Feather collection, and the name of this one is Early Bird. I fell for this palette because it had such gorgeous embossing on the shadows, and maybe that's just not the best reason to like palettes. I remember on the review where I tried it, I did like the shimmer shades that the palette has, okay, but I wasn't the biggest fan of this satin to matte poopy brown color that it has. So while I do really like the shimmers, the matte is just not my favorite. I do still like to use this palette, but I usually just use the shimmers and go for a different matte. So for that reason, this is palette number 41. And at number 40, I have another Pat McGrath palette. This one here is the Pat McGrath palette in Bronze Borealis. This was part of the holiday collection, and out of the two that came out, this one is definitely the one I like best. I like the deep rosy burgundy color story. It combines well with the golds that come in this palette. I do wish that the golds were a little bit more different from one another than they are. They feel very, very close together, but as far as like, you know, coming up with looks that I like with this one, I can absolutely achieve that, and it has Pat McGrath's amazing formula. I just wish the color story was a little bit more different. I felt like this was the color story that I had already seen from her before, so for that reason it might excite me a little less. However, it's still a really good palette. Okay, so at number 40, I have the last drugstore palette that I will talk about in the video, and it is this one right here. This is the Mints palette from the Rebels collection from Juvia's Place. And even though I have a ton of palettes still to go, this palette deserves special credit. It is a $10 palette from the drugstore, and it has the best matte mint shades I have ever personally tried. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I tried the Huda Beauty Pastel Obsessions palette. I believe that was in 2020. And when I tell you those palettes were trash, they were so bad, especially the Mint Obsessions palette or the Mint Pastel Obsessions palette from Huda Beauty. It was an absolute disaster. The shades could not work. I've never seen patchier eyeshadows, and Huda charges like $29 for those. So to have this $10 palette that you can get at Ulta from Juvia's Place that actually has really good, highly performing matte mint shades was incredible in my opinion, and this palette just deserves a lot of love. And the only reason it's not like further along is because you can get just like the one mint look with it. Like it's not a very diverse palette per se, but like if you want a mint look, get that palette. Okay, I made a mistake. The Mints palette was $39 and then this right here is $38. So this is the Rare Beauty True to Myself eyeshadow palette. I tried this one maybe during the springtime it came out. I really do not like that the biggest shade in the palette is that big shimmer, and I don't like the chunky glitters like that anymore. I've like grown out of them. It's not that I don't think that they look flattering per se. I do think that you can make them work and you can make them flattery looking. It's just kind of uncomfortable on the eyes, and so I rather use other kinds of glitters or shimmers that are more finely milled. I'm basically spoiled by Pat McGrath is what I'm trying to say here. Anyways, as far as the color story though, it's nice, it's cute, you can come up with nice natural looks with this one, and I really like the packaging of these. I wish that the color stories maybe were more unique. I do think that the formulas are nice from Rare Beauty, and I'm hoping that she comes up with more of these palettes in the future that are like color story wise a little bit more exciting. But yeah, I like these and I love the packaging of them. At number 37, something that just came into my life very recently, the Viseart Petite Four in the color Bouillon, I think. Anyways, this one here, it has 3 gold shades. They are slightly different. One's more champagne, one's more yellow. The other one is lighter, and then a matte black. Viseart eyeshadows are incredible. I think that they perform amazingly. And so therefore, I do really like this palette. I do wish though that instead of like 3 gold shades, they would have put like a transition color, 2 golds and the black. I feel like that would make it more user-friendly. But it is a cute little palette. At number 36, another palette from that same collection from Viseart. This is the Garnet palette. It is kind of like the red palette. I do like that this one does have a color that you can put in your crease for transition. The red or the bronze can be your outer corner or crease shade. A really nice, beautiful palette. I like that even though it's only 4 shades, you get a little bit of variety in this one. Like you can come up with at least 3 like distinct looks with this little palette. If you use transition color in one of these shades, that's a look. Transition color in another one of these shades, that's a look, etc. And then again, I do really like the Viseart, I never know how to say it, formula. And 35 is also from Viseart. This is the Paris one. They recently just sent me this one. I do really like the formula of these. Love this particular shade right here. Looked so beautiful on the eyes. And then the dark grungy mattes are definitely a look. I feel like with this palette though, you can only get kind of like darkish grungy type of look, so you have to be in the mood for those to reach for this one. However, it did perform beautifully, and you do have more choices in this one, so you can come up with a bit more of a variety of looks. At number 34, I have a Natasha Denona mini palette. This is the Mini Zenon palette that came out this year, and I have to admit, I do actually really like this little palette. I think formula-wise, the formulas are incredible. I love that silver shimmer. Is like one of my favorite silver shimmers ever, and you can actually come up with a bit of a variety of looks within the gray color story that this palette has. I did, I think, 2 looks when I first reviewed this palette, and I actually did really like them both. Now, if you buy this palette, you want to like cool tone shades, and you definitely want to like black smoky eyes, because that is pretty much what you would get this palette for. So it's a very specific look, but formula wise, I think this palette performs amazingly, and I do really like it. I cannot believe I have lied to you guys yet again. I told you that the Mint palette from Juvia's Place was my most favorite drugstore palette, and I lied. This right here is actually, I'm pretty sure this time, hopefully, my most favorite drugstore eyeshadow palette. This is the e.l.f. Cosmetics Electric Mood palette in collaboration with Tiana Major, and I could not believe. First of all, I love the color story, great variety of shades. You can come up with some amazing looks with this palette. It even goes further beyond having just shimmers, and it's got duochrome shades in it, which I found so amazing for e.l.f. And then it has a really good variety of mattes as well. The formula is actually really nice. You know, not as nice as like your high-end luxury palette formulas, but it performs very, very decently for how affordable this palette is. Plus, it has an amazing color story. The only bad thing about this palette is that it was limited edition. I feel like e.l.f. should have a permanent collection of palettes like this one, because I found it to be quite amazing. And so this right here was palette number 33. At number 32, I have another little quad from Viseart. This one here is the green one, and I love this one. First of all, I love how there is different types or shades of green in it. Some more olive, some more vibrant, some more like emerald. Plus it has a really perfect transition color. So again, even though it's just a little quad, you can create quite the little variety of looks with this one. They're all going to be green, obviously, but they will look different. And I love the Viseart formula, so what's not to love about this one? And at 31, I have the Cosmic Pearl palette from Miss Charlotte Tilbury. These are extremely easy to use. The formulas are the most blendable. I love the duochrome that comes in this one. However, you can only get like one very specific look with this one. It is a very beautiful, very shimmery, very specific look, but there isn't a ton of variety in here. And so this is palette number 31. And at number 30, we have another Dior Quint. This is from the same Birds of a Feather collection. This one is called Nightbird. Again, I love the embossing on these, but then this one specifically just has some really spectacular shimmer shades. They don't look as vibrant on the eyes though, I will admit, as they do on the pans. However, they are still really beautiful. I really love that this one has that peachy, light peachy tone in the center. I feel like that kind of is what made the difference for me, because you can use that one on the crease and then put the greens on the eyelid and you can create some very beautiful looks with this one. This is like colorful but make it very natural and toned down type of a look, which is still very beautiful and very elegant. I haven't found a Dior Quint that like knocks my socks off yet, but this one was pretty, you know, no regrets, just not like as exciting as the rest of the palettes I have in front of it. And at number 29, my favorite palette from the Saga of Freya collection. This one is called Tears of Freya. Again, I love the vintage book packaging type thing, and even though this one looks very basic, which it kind of does, I really did love this palette for creating spring and summery looks. I feel like it doesn't let you go too dark. It just kind of stays nice and girly and airy and summery and just kind of vibrant. Plus I do love the Odin's Eye shimmer shades, so this one has some really nice shimmers in it, and the Odin's Eye matte shades perform amazingly. Formula wise, I am all about it. Color story wise, I really love this one for the spring and summertime, which made it very exciting to me. So no complaints about this one, really like it. And palette number 28, I feel like I can't believe that this one is like kind of far back, but I feel like every palette that comes from here on I absolutely love, so it is what it is, right? So this right here is number 28 for me. Like I said, I'm not considering those shades cheek shades. I'm just considering this an eyeshadow palette because I'm never going to use those for blush. I really love this color story. I thought the formula was incredible, very creamy, just regular Anastasia formula that we know performs well. Loved the shimmer shades. Well, the color story was technically different from the rest of the palettes because I did compare it to every single one of my Anastasia palettes, and nothing quite was like this color story. It is still a color story that we've seen before a million times, which is what makes it a little bit less exciting. However, it is a beautiful palette, and if you are in the market for a palette with like this type of color story, I do recommend it. Next up at number 27, I have this one right here. This is from Artist Couture. This is the Supreme bronze palette from them. I absolutely love the packaging of these Artist Couture palettes. It's so sleek and black and like luxurious feeling. A+ on packaging. As far as the formulas are concerned, I do really like that this one has a nice combination of warm tones and cool tones. That gold right there in the center is to die for. It's a beautiful, beautiful gold. It has nice transition-y colors, really pretty shimmers. It's a good palette. I really do like it, and like I said, obsessed with the packaging. I feel like the packaging gave it like extra move forward points. Just a stunning palette. I do like it. It performs well. And at number 26, I have this one right here from Wayne Goss. This is the Luxury Eye palette in the color Pearl, I guess. This is stunning. This is like a bigger version of like a Pillow Talk palette. This is really nice and bridal, perfect for everyday. Truly no complaints. I love the formula, love the shimmers. It feels very luxurious. The packaging on this one is also gorgeous. I guess I like the plastic black sleek packaging I'm gathering here. It feels really nice and luxe. The formulas are great. It is on the basic side, but like I do like this type of like color story where you don't have to think about it. It's just so easy to pick this up and come up with like a really nice basic look that you're going to feel confident in. This could be a great bridal palette or even like an everyday work type of palette. Really lovely, but you know, nothing overly exciting about the color story either. Okay, we have gotten to the top 25 palettes. Cannot believe it. I absolutely love it. This is the Kaleidos Flower Punk palette. I feel like this is a fall palette and a spring palette combined, but also divided, because the olive green shades give me very fall vibes, and then everything towards the front of the palette is very springy. Kaleidos is an incredible brand when it comes to eyeshadows. I am obsessed with their formulas, the mattes, and the shimmers. Do not sleep on Kaleidos eyeshadows because they are spectacular. Love the innovative packaging with this one. Like you can take the top off and like use the mirror separately. Really nothing bad to say about this one. Very useful little palette. Love the color story. The shimmers are incredible. The mattes are incredible. I think I did a 3 looks 1 palette with that Flower Punk palette, and I highly recommend watching that video if you're interested, because the looks were very, very beautiful. And the Kaleidos eyeshadows are extremely, extremely easy to use. Okay, at number 24, I have the last of the Petite Four palettes from Viseart. This one is called La Peace. Viseart names just make me feel so insecure. I've never taken a day of French in my life. So I absolutely love this one, and it ranked a lot higher because I'm actually wearing it today, so I feel like I realized how good this was. I'm not wearing it on its own. I am wearing it along with Interstellar Icon, but I have this light blue color on the inner corners of my eye. I have the dark blue on the outer corner right there, and then I also use the transition shade kind of like as a base, and I just, so good. Love, love, love this blue color story. And I love that there's an intense blue, but there's also a very, very light icy blue in this one. I think it makes it very, very special. At number 23, I have this one right here. This is the Huda Beauty Wild Chameleon palette that came out this year. The Brown Obsessions collection from Huda didn't have a great formula, but the Wild Obsessions collection from Huda that came out this year does have an amazing formula. So these are good Huda shadows right here. I love the variety of colors that she gave us in this one. The shimmers are really spectacular in this little palettes. The mattes blend like an absolute dream. Zero complaints. I really like this color story as well. And so this right here is palette number 23. And I have its sister at the 22nd spot. This is the Wild Python palette from Huda Beauty. This has the greens in it, plus it has a couple of teal shades. I love the browns and peachy colors in this palette because it makes the looks a little bit more interesting than if she would have stuck to a monochromatic color story. I feel like the browns and the peachy shade that comes in this palette makes the greens stand out even more. Absolutely obsessed with the shimmers that come in this palette. They are extremely vibrant and shimmery and jewel-like, so definitely love this. I feel like from 25 or so on, it is all love for my palettes. Okay, palette number 21 is this colorful, beautiful thing right here. This is from Odin's Eye. This is from her collaboration with Tina from the Fancy Phase. This palette is absolutely gorgeous. I am obsessed with the formulas that come in this palette, and every single one of these beautiful metallic shimmer shades are to die for. Nothing, absolutely nothing negative I can say about this one. I really love it. The mattes are incredible. Everything blends like a dream. The shimmers are like you just have to touch your eyelid and they are on, okay? The only reason this one is not as like popular as some of the other palettes in this collection that I will also talk about a little bit further on is because within like level of excitement ranking, I take into account how much I reach for things as well. And because this is such a colorful palette, I don't reach for this one as much as I reach for some of the other ones. However, absolutely nothing negative I can say about this palette. I love it so much. Highly recommend it. I don't know if everything sold out from their Black Friday sale, but this palette is so dreamy, and I love the packaging. Nice and sturdy cardboard packaging. The graphics are incredible. So good, absolutely special. And a very similar palette quality wise and colorful story wise is palette number 20, which is this right here. This is the Natasha Denona Circo Loco palette. Also a very colorful, very daring kind of a palette with incredible formulas. This one here, I feel like it's a little bit messy to look at, and Natasha probably did that purposefully because it is a Circo Loco palette, right? But it is absolutely stunning. Love every single one of these shades, and you can come up with some really stunning colorful looks with this one if colorful looks are your thing. So it is a very exciting palette, but because it's so colorful and I'm more of a basic type of person, I don't reach for this one as much as I would like to reach for it. So this right here is palette number 20. At number 19, I have a quad that I have found to be so freaking useful, and that is this one right here. This is from Miss Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Celestial Pearl palette, and the reason this being more of like a boring basic palette, right, ranks a little bit higher than some of these other ones I've been talking about is because I've used it quite a lot, and whenever I want to do a look where I put on a bold lip, this is the palette that I want to reach for, because I know it doesn't let me go darker than I should with my eyeshadow. Plus I do really like the duochrome glittery shimmery shades that come in this one. So even though it doesn't look like much, I personally have gotten a lot of use out of it, and I really like the way that the looks come out whenever I use it. So this right here is palette number 19. And in the 18th spot, I have this right here from Miss Natasha Denona. This is the Natasha Denona Mini Metropolis palette. Absolutely love this little thing. It is a great palette for the fall and the Christmas season. That mustardy matte shade right there makes it absolutely perfect for the fall time. And then the emerald green, the vibrant gold, and the more cool tone shades right here at the end make it also be a really great Christmas palette. Love the formulation of these, love the colors that she picked for this little quint. Zero complaints. This right here is palette number 18. And at number 17, another Natasha Denona palette. This is the Mini Love palette. I was obsessed with this palette at the beginning of the year, and I kind of still am. This is a romantic color story, but even though it's like pinks, and I know I said I don't love bright pinks earlier, this is not necessarily bright pinks, right? First of all, it combines beautifully with the dark burgundy shade right there. There's no fuchsia pink in here. They're all a little bit more like subdued, a little bit more cool toned, not like dark fuchsia pink or nothing too vibrant. So I absolutely love this beautiful romantic color story here. The formulation in this palette is to die for. The shimmer shades are so pigmented and so highly reflective. A beautiful palette from Natasha Denona. Really beautifully curated. Literally nothing negative I can say about this one. I absolutely love it. And number 16 might be a surprise to some of you, because I feel like this is one of the most highly rated, more talked about palettes that came out this year. However, it just isn't my personal favorite. Let me just go ahead and say it. The Retro palette from Natasha Denona. I know that a lot of you absolutely love this palette, but the same way I rank palettes lower for being overly colorful, where like I don't really reach for them as much even though I like them, this one ranks a little bit lower because even though I like it, it is a pretty monochromatic color story and not one that I've been reaching for that much either, to be completely honest with you. I think the main thing that took me a little bit back with this palette, again, I absolutely love it. It performs beautifully, but I love really highly metallic shimmer shades that are reflective, kind of like what I'm wearing on my eyes today. And this one did not give me that. The shimmer shades in this one are not that special. Even though the mattes are beautiful, I felt like the shimmers could have been better, and so therefore it doesn't rank any higher than number 16. It's still a beautiful palette. I think it was a great release this year, but just I'm more excited about the rest of the 15 palettes that I have to tell you about than I am about this one. Now, I don't know if you noticed in the title, but I did say this was part 1 of a 2-part video because I could not possibly fit 59 palettes in in one video. So to see my top 15 palettes of 2020, come back for tomorrow's video and you will be able to see what my most favorite palettes of the year were. With that said, I know that a lot of you watched a lot of the tutorials I did with the rest of these palettes that I talked about today, and so now you know kind of how they rank in my collection. I really hope that you guys liked this video. If you did, don't forget to please give it a thumbs up before you leave. I cannot wait to rank my top 15 palettes. I am looking at them right now and I cannot wait to tell you about them. For the top 15, I will show you some swatches. I just kind of wanted to go through these a little bit quicker because there are so many. Anyways, love you guys so much. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope to see you back in tomorrow's video. Bye.